Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM Today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Thursday, 5th June 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China is facing a complex landscape of economic and geopolitical developments. Amidst ongoing trade tensions, former President Donald Trump stated that reaching a trade deal with President Xi Jinping would be challenging. Automotive industry groups are increasingly worried about potential shortages of rare earth elements as China contemplates further export restrictions. The country is witnessing rapid advancements in biotechnology, particularly in pharmaceuticals and agricultural technology. Efforts are underway to curb the electric vehicle (EV) price war, though analysts doubt the feasibility of eliminating intense competition. In a significant economic move, China intends to ease internet censorship by lifting the Great Firewall for select users in Hainan, seeking to establish the region as a global free trade port. China has approved mass production of its first domestically designed 1,000-kilowatt helicopter engine. Ride-hailing giant Didi has returned to profitability, fueled by expansion in its international operations. Amid the EV price war, Chinese regulators have cautioned Baidu and its competitors to practice self-regulation. China's service sector activity has increased following a pause in the trade war. The nation has also constructed the most coal-fired power plants in a decade to secure power supply. The integration of artificial intelligence, AI, is augmenting China's supply chain advantages. Safety regulations for driving assistance systems are also under consideration. Regarding foreign relations, China has criticized French President Macron's comments on Taiwan and opposes any NATO involvement in the Asia-Pacific region. Baidu is planning a major expansion of its dealer network in South Africa, with aims to nearly triple the number of locations by the following year. Citigroup is currently undergoing a global restructuring effort. As part of this plan, Citigroup will reduce its technology workforce in China by 3,500 positions. Hong Kong's stock market has seen gains for 3 straight days. This is driven by China's service sector PMI data exceeding expectations. A Hong Kong-based lithium battery recycling startup is exploring business opportunities both within the city and in Southeast Asia. Tesla's Shanghai factory has experienced a decline in deliveries for 8 consecutive months. Tesla faces increasing competition from Chinese EV manufacturers. United States stocks showed mixed performance as Wall Street's momentum slowed, with Treasury yields decreasing as investors kept watch on trade talks and jobs data. The U.S. trade deficit saw a record narrowing, triggered by a significant drop in imports. Former President Donald Trump alleged that Beijing had violated the previous month's agreement to lower tariffs, raising questions about the U.S.-China trade truce. Senate Democrats warned that Trump's plan to defund NPR and PBS could result in station closures and the absence of vital services. Circle, a stablecoin issuer, raised $1.05 billion in an upsized U.S. IPO. Meanwhile, British fintech company Wise intends to shift its primary listing to the US, a move viewed as a setback for the London Stock Exchange. Oil prices declined due to increased US stockpiles and Saudi Arabia's price reductions. US auto suppliers are pushing for action regarding China's rare earth restrictions amidst ongoing tariff tensions. China is facing accusations from Donald Trump, who claims Beijing violated the recent agreement to reduce tariffs, thus jeopardizing the U.S.-China trade truce. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is set to meet China's leader Xi Jinping in Beijing this summer, with trade as a key topic. Hong Kong's government successfully issued HK $27 billion, 44 billion in multi-currency green and infrastructure bonds, reflecting strong investor confidence. Stablecoins are expected to become a crucial tool for cross-border payments, benefiting issuers in Hong Kong and mainland Chinese companies expanding globally. Australia will see Prime Minister Anthony Albanese meeting with China's leader Xi Jinping in Beijing this summer to discuss trade matters. Meanwhile, the Australian regulator has accused Westpac's mortgage division of using fabricated documents. Toys R Us in Australia has entered voluntary administration again after attempting a revival 5 years prior. Commonwealth Bank, CBA, shares have achieved a total value surpassing $300 billion. WHAM Life is planning an IPO in early July, with deal terms expected to be disclosed by Tuesday. United Kingdom-based fintech company Wise is planning to move its primary listing to the US, a decision seen as a blow to the London Stock Exchange. India is experiencing an early monsoon season, with predictions of above-average rainfall expected to positively impact agriculture and rural economies. The Reserve Bank of India is considering a 25 basis point rate cut during its upcoming monetary policy meeting to further stimulate economic growth. Bank of America Securities views India as a prime market for stock compounders, but advises caution regarding short-term performance. The Nifty 50 saw a significant intraday surge, exceeding 1%, reaching 24,899.85, fueled by reliance in sectors sensitive to interest rates, as anticipation builds for the RBI's decision. MAF has once again become India's most expensive stock, overtaking LSID Investments. TCL's data centers and the Bombay Stock Exchange, BSE, are partnering to strengthen India's digital financial infrastructure. The Leela Hotels, operating via Schloss Bangalore, launched its initial public offering, IPO, of $35 billion on both the BSE and National Stock Exchange, NNC, demonstrating growth in the luxury hospitality industry. NSE Academy is partnering with the Institute of Management Accountants, IMA, of the USA, to boost management accounting education in India. Amit Premchandani of UTI Mutual Fund expresses optimism regarding the long-term investment opportunities in the BFSI and healthcare sector. Indian stock markets opened with gains, reflecting positive trends across Asian markets. Asian markets presented a mixed bag, reacting to shifting oil prices, trade concerns, and Wall Street activity. Optimism around a potential Federal Reserve rate cut, spurred by weak U.S. economic figures, drove gains in some sessions. China's main index, for instance, rose 0.23% in one session. Talks are progressing to allow Asian firms to list on the Saudi exchange. Hong Kong's regulator is set to approve Bitcoin and crypto derivatives trading, signaling a favorable shift in the Asian crypto landscape. In other news, Asian stocks initially climbed after the election of a new South Korean leader, which overlapped with new steel and aluminum tariffs. Turning to India, the Life Insurance Corporation, LIC, allocated $15,463 crore to its top 15 stock choices in the fourth quarter. Notably, 10 of these companies yielded profits in fiscal year 2026. Ukraine has begun to receive funds from seized Russian assets, with the initial tranche totaling $1 billion originating from profits generated in the United States. U.S. officials, however, have revised downwards the estimated number of Russian bombers struck by Ukraine during Operation Spiderweb. Amidst the continuing conflict, Putin pledged retaliation against Ukraine in a conversation with Trump. European nations are actively responding to the ramifications of the Russia-Ukraine war. The EU bypassed Hungary to commit support to Ukraine and agreed to an $867 billion increase in defense spending. Bulgaria is set to receive $519 million as compensation for the military assistance it has provided to Ukraine. Poland has stated its intention to find alternative solutions if Elon Musk restricts Ukraine's Starlink access. NATO is reportedly approaching an agreement where member states dedicate 5% of their GDP to defense and security. Hungary and Slovakia, however, pose a threat to EU solidarity concerning Russia and Ukraine, leading up to a crucial summit. Turning to the United Kingdom, the National Statistics Agency admitted that inflation figures for April were inflated due to an error related to car taxes, leading to the release of corrected data. Saudi Arabia is spearheading a drive for significant oil production hikes within OPEC. Even after recent supply increases lowered July oil prices for Asia and caused a general drop in oil prices. This ambition has reignited disagreements within the OPEC alliance. Economically, Saudi Arabia has lowered its benchmark oil selling price to Asian markets. The kingdom's quality of life program continues to stimulate investment through the Vision 2030 reforms. An IPO in Saudi Arabia garnered $32 billion in orders after a dividend policy shift. Concerns have been raised as unions lodged a formal complaint about Saudi Arabia's handling of migrant workers. An African coalition has targeted Saudi Arabia's World Cup, hosting in a complaint to an unbacked labor organization. In manufacturing, Hainan is expanding its production capacity to 6 GBU within Saudi Arabia. The Saudi foreign minister has also committed financial aid to Syrian state employees. Russia's fertilizer exports remain vital to European agriculture, despite the war in Ukraine. However, oil and gas revenues in Russia dropped by 35% in May. Gazprom, the Russian energy giant, reported a $13.10 billion in 2024. Crude production in May remained under OPEC targets. Allegations suggest Russia is using as banks to channel billions to Turkey, possibly evading sanctions. The Moscow exchange has now introduced Bitcoin futures for Russian investors. Moldova's prime minister asserts that Russia intends to deploy 10,000 additional troops to the Moldovan breakaway region. Russia maintains its right to respond to Ukrainian attacks as it sees fit. Former President Trump claimed Putin told him Russia would retaliate against Ukrainian airfield attacks. Pope Leo appealed to Putin to support peace during a recent call. South Korea's stock market surged to a 10-month high after the election of President Lee, spearheading rallies across Asian markets. This boost indicates strong confidence in Lee's promised reforms and hints at a possible bull market. President Lee has committed to reinvigorating democracy, tackling issues at home and abroad. The next 10 years are seen as crucial for South Korea to potentially become a leading global force. Nimco has also announced its strategic entry into the South Korean market by acquiring a company listed on the Kosdaq. Taiwan's stock market experienced positive movement, with the Taiwan weighted index rising by 0.59%. Financially, Wistron intends to boost its capital reserves through a share offering, seeking to accumulate as much as $923 million. NVIDIA is growing its foothold in Taiwan's tech landscape through aggressive hiring practices. The company is apparently offering salaries as high as $180,000 to poach engineers from TSMC. REA is scaling up its production and distribution of 1212 EV SiC diodes originating from Taiwan. Marking a milestone in e-commerce logistics, Shipney commemorated its first anniversary in Taiwan, having supported over 1,000 e-commerce ventures in refining their logistics strategies. Germany is seeing a rise in electric car purchases, despite a notable drop in Tesla registrations during May. Economic activity in Germany is also reflected in increased factory orders, occurring even after the announcement of new tariffs. by the US German stocks have also responded positively to the approval of a tax relief package. This economic optimism has contributed to Europe's stocks 600 reaching a one-week high. On the international stage, Germany is bolstering its commitment to NATO by increasing its spending. In efforts to strengthen transatlantic relations, German politician Merz is scheduled to meet with Trump to discuss trade and security matters. South Africa's economy is gaining traction as the rand strengthens amid parliamentary backing for the budget. The current account deficit has seen a slight improvement. Shares of African Rainbow Min Ltd. RRI on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange climbed almost 2% Deutsche. Asian markets mostly declined, though Hong Kong's tech sector fueled gains. South Korea extended its rally following recent elections. The United States seized Cambria Energy Corp., now trading on the OTCQB venture market. Regarding healthcare policy, Kennedy has voiced opposition to preemptively blocking unproven stem cell treatments. His argument centers on the premise that the presence of fraudulent practitioners does not warrant limiting access to these treatments altogether. Switching to trade matters, the UK has been granted an exemption from the 50% steel tariff that was earlier put in place by the Trump administration. Yet, a 25% steel duty remains in effect for the UK, pending the finalization and implementation of a new trade agreement between the two nations. Japan is currently witnessing a private lunar lander attempt a landing on the moon's far north side. Concurrently, the Japanese government is offering longer-term debt in another bond sale. Sales at McDonald's Japan are up, boosted by collaborations with Minecraft and Chiikawa. However, the Nikkei stock average closed lower due to worries about the U.S. economic outlook. The United States is contemplating tariffs aimed at revitalizing domestic manufacturing, with President Trump hoping to incentivize companies to bring production back home. Businesses, however, are finding it difficult to relocate manufacturing operations from places like the Citigroup factory in Vietnam. Vietnam is facing potential price increases on exported goods, such as shoes and sweaters, if the proposed tariffs by the United States are implemented. In response to pressures from the U.S., Vietnam has affirmed its commitment to acting in goodwill regarding trade relations. Hungary faces increasing scrutiny and resistance from the European Union due to its policies and stance on key geopolitical issues. The EU court delivered a legal setback to Hungary's anti-LGBTQ clampdown, signaling the EU's commitment to upholding human rights and challenging discriminatory legislation. Hungary has voiced strong opposition to the proposed $22 billion EU aid package for Ukraine, creating friction within the bloc. Along with Slovakia, Hungary threatens EU unity regarding Russia and Ukraine, particularly ahead of crucial summits where consensus is needed. In response to Hungary's obstructionist approach, the EU has, at times, sidelined the country to pledge support for Ukraine, such as reaching a consensus on an $867 billion defense boost, without Hungary's explicit agreement. This highlights a growing divide between Hungary and the majority of the EU regarding support for Ukraine and broader foreign policy objectives. European stock markets initially surged, buoyed by anticipation of a potential European Central Bank (ECB) interest rate cut. Positive signals from EU trade officials regarding trade talks with the US further fueled this optimism. However, broader economic uncertainties and trade headwinds soon triggered a market downturn. Tesla's stock price also declined due to reports of decreased sales in key European markets. Canada's stock market is facing headwinds, with the S&P/TSX Composite Index decreasing by 0.37% due to worries about potential tariff hikes and their impact on the economy and the Toronto stock market. Higher tariffs on steel and aluminum could flood the EU market with cheaper foreign steel, thereby impacting home builders, car manufacturers, and can makers. Ukraine is set to receive a boost from Bulgaria, which will receive $519 in compensation for providing military aid. Meanwhile, Poland is looking at alternatives should Elon Musk cut off Ukraine's Starlink satellite internet access. Egypt is experiencing a surge in remittances from its citizens working abroad, with inflows jumping over 80% to $26.40 billion. Pakistan's growing reliance on decentralized solar power has prompted calls for China to spearhead efforts to facilitate the country's transition to renewable energy. Spain has made its initial payment related to an ongoing dispute concerning renewable energy. Kenya is voicing apprehension over Tullow Oil's decision to divest its assets, citing potential ramifications for the nation's oil sector. Sweden's core inflation rate has decelerated to a 5-month low, hinting at a possible loosening of monetary policy. Ethiopia and Nigeria are both leveraging investment funds as a means to tackle their respective employment crises. Austria's Raiffeisenbank International has finalized a damages payment to Russia. Brazil's Suzano has acquired a controlling interest in Kimberly-Clark's International Tissue Unit. The United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are seeing increased investment activity, with 91, an investment management firm, establishing a presence in both countries. Singapore, specifically Saif, a robo-advisor, has raised $80 million in Series C funding. This will support the expansion of its wealth management products into Hong Kong. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.